Hi, welcome to the Action Speak Network. I'm Anazai. So in this video, I'm going to present to you a couple of very heated exchanges that took place yesterday in the House of Representatives of the United States. Then I will present to you an exchange that took place in the Senate floor between Senator Whitehouse and Mr. Long, the nominee to become the Commissioner of IRS. These clips are very interesting. Please, let's watch them together, and I will see you after this clip. Play the clip.
Representative Long, welcome to the committee. The taxpayer advocate in Rhode Island noticed that service dramatically improved for regular taxpayers when the additional funding for the IRS came through to the IRS, that wait times diminished, that they could get answers much more quickly. Will you work with the taxpayer advocates and listen to them to make sure that their advice is heard in your office?
Definitely. We had a little bit of a discussion on that earlier, and a lot of people still think I'm in Congress, so they still contact me with their issues. And I say, I'm not at the IRS, I can't talk about tax issues, and then I'll chat GPT, the taxpayer advocate service in their state, and there's 2 or 3 offices, 6 or 7 refer them, and I've had very good response that they said that was helpful.
What will your policy be if you're asked by political higher-ups, say at the White House, to use the IRS against perceived political?
It's not going to happen. That's
how do we know
on my watch? Huh?
How will we know it's not going to happen? Are there any guardrails you'll set up to make sure that that doesn't happen?
And I guess you got to figure out if I'm telling you the truth or not, but it's not going to happen on my watch. I mean, Congressman, and there's 9 people on your 27-person committee here that I served with in the House for 12 years, most of them for 12 years.
Yeah. Will you at least make that policy clear? Will you promise to make that policy clear when you get to the IRS?
Yes,
because
there's a lot of things I want to make.
Do with the Department of Justice,
sir?
One of the things about the Department of Justice is that they're very scrupulous about not letting little squirrels running around in the White House talk to little squirrels running around in the Department of Justice and influence prosecutions without the Attorney General or the Deputy Attorney General knowing about it. Will you look at making sure in some kind of internal policy statement that you're not being circumvented with some person employed by you being told by the White House, let's go screw this person, and you don't know about it? And then they say, well, there's no policy. The IRS commissioner never said anything about that.
If I'm being circumvented, then I'm not the commissioner of the IRS. I mean, so that should not happen.
All right. Well, make sure that it doesn't, because there'll be every incentive to try to push it. We've seen the president do it with Harvard. You had questions about that already. We were told in the Finance Committee that the tax credit that you were helping these private individuals to hawk, quote, the tax credit does not exist. If you get to the IRS, what are you going to do about that?
Senator Wyden and another senator have already started an investigation, and is my way of thinking, and whatever my OGE says, since I did refer some friends to Capital Edge Strategies, who, if I can, I mean, anybody that's doing anything illegal should be investigated. It's common sense.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that we now have an IRS employee who has said this tax credit that you've been hawking does not exist. And I'm wondering what they can expect by way of retaliation for having said that once you come in.
None.
All right.
I'm not,
So one other thing, let me look at your donations here. The political stuff, I think we've been over this before, but if you could pull it up. So you lost your Senate primary, you carried $130,000 in debt as of August 2nd, 2022, correct? Then time goes by and none of that gets paid down. In fact, 2 years and 5 months go by, nearly 30 months. It's a pretty good long period of time, to December 4th, when suddenly it's announced that you're about to be the IRS commissioner. And after 2 years and 5 months of no activity, suddenly, starting the following day and just in the next 2 months, suddenly $165,000 floods in. Will you share with us all the communications with those donors by you or any known intermediary of yours that prompted that sudden flood of donations that ended up in your personal pocket?
As I've mentioned several times today, everything that you do with the Federal Election Commission, you have to do it by the book, by their rules, and that's exactly what I did. We followed the letter of the law with the FEC. If this stuff needs to be changed, then you need to change what the FEC does or how that.
This is different. This isn't just complying with the FEC. This is a Senate hearing about whether you should be the IRS commissioner or not. And if you started using the office of IRS commissioner to solicit funds back then, that's the kind of thing that would be shown in the communications by you or intermediaries with these individuals. Will you promise to share with the committee any communications related to that sudden surge of contributions to you?
I'll share what we shared with the FEC. I mean, everything had to be reported. Everything had to be public. It wasn't like I thought, oh, you know, these people are sending money in and now, you know,
well,
I mean, it's in the public record. So
we all know here that what you file with the FEC versus what happens when you conduct an investigation and look back behind the filings and look at the communications and the memos and the phone call records, whatever took place.
This witness is a very entertaining individual. That's not what is at issue this morning. What's at issue are the facts, and that's what I want to go through with you, Mr. Long. After leaving the Congress, you made $65,000 referring your friends to tax promoters who claimed that they acquired income tax credits issued to a Native American tribe and then sold these credits to investors. There's a problem. The IRS said in March that the credits do not exist. They're fake. They are a scam. Now you're asking to be put in charge of the IRS, and the IRS confirms that these aren't real. Tell the committee, do you believe these so-called tribal tax credits actually exist?
thank you for the question. My only involvement in this matter, like I've said numerous times in the written correspondences back and forth with members of the committee, was to connect interested friends of mine, not robocall, not paying kids $25 an hour to call, but just friends. If they had any interest, then I would say, do you want to get on a Zoom? And I was never on the Zoom.
That's not my question. My question is,
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Do you believe that these so-called tribal tax credits actually exist? That's yes or no.
I do. I can't answer yes or no because I do not know. I think the jury's still out on that. I know since 2022 they've been accepting them, so now they claim that they're not and they haven't been. So I think that all this is going to play out, and I want to have it investigated just as you do. I know you're very interested in this subject. I am too.
Well, I released a recording of an investor call on the scheme last week. One person on the call said they had sold $20 million worth of credits and they'd all been rejected by the IRS. So can you name a single Native American tribe that you or any other promoter acquired these tribal tax credits from?
I worked through Capital Edge Strategies. I didn't work through, I've never talked to anybody at White River. I don't even know anybody at White River, and I don't have any way to know who the tribe is even.
Well, most of your experience with tax involves selling tax shelters that don't exist for a Native American tribe that you can't name, and that's what I'm troubled by. So let's go now to the question of pay to play. In the past year, you made $65,000 referring clients to promoters of what appears to be this fraudulent tribal tax credit. The President announced your nomination on December 4th. Within a matter of weeks, that same tribal tax creditor group of promoters contributed $165,000 to your old campaign, even though you left office years ago. You then transferred the money from the campaign to your pocket. After you were nominated to be IRS commissioner, Who did you talk with to solicit those $165,000 in donations?
You know as well as I do that anytime you're dealing with the FEC, you have to follow FEC guidelines, and that's exactly what I did all the way through.
I want to know who you talked with.
And you have to report these things, and it comes out exactly. If I thought something was wrong with it, I sure wouldn't.
Congressman, money doesn't just fall out of the sky. You had to talk to somebody. So who did you talk to about the $165,000? And if it's relevant, did
everyone
you
that I talked to and everyone that I dealt with or didn't talk to was FEC compliant, sir.
Can we get a list of those you talked to?
I gave it all to I gave everything to the FEC. So the FEC, everything we did was compliant with their regulations.
So you just expect us to believe that the money just fell out of the sky and it showed up in your campaign treasury? I just find that a little bit implausible. And let's go on to the next one. Promoting the employee retention tax credit. We talked about your experience selling tribal tax credits, this gimmick. Now let's talk about your other tax experience. Since 2023, you've been paid as a referral agent for employee retention tax credit promoters. You stated on a YouTube video that everybody qualifies for the employee retention tax credit, and you urged listeners to ignore CPAs who said they didn't qualify. Do you really think everybody qualifies?
If you listen to that video, I hate to correct you, but I didn't say everyone qualifies. I said virtually everyone qualifies, meaning that most people, virtually is in there. I listened to it the other day to make sure.
So basically, overwhelmingly everybody qualifies. You want to quibble about it? I think this is wrong, and that's what I'm troubled by.
You voted for it. I voted for it. We did it.
I voted for it when we all, during the heart of the COVID period, were trying to take employers and employees and get them some help. This problem, which we learned about from the commissioner, took place after COVID receded, and that's why we're so troubled by the fraud. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Been involved in an accident that wasn't your fault?
Yes.
You're sitting on a massive payout and don't even know it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Secretary Noem, for attendance today. Let me start by also agreeing with Senator Moreno on some things, and I think it is positive the Trump administration has provided stronger border security to keep illegal border crossings as close to zero as possible. We definitely have seen that in Arizona. My concern is that it's not sustainable. It's expensive. That's why I recently released a common sense border security that would make it sustainable and would actually deliver long-term solutions. But let me get to my first question. Your department is overspending right now. It's on track to run out of money again by mid-July to support a mass deportation campaign that can't be afforded. At the same time, though, you recently requested a $50 million allotment for a private Gulfstream jet. That's $50 million of taxpayer money to subsidize some of your national tours that you've been going on. Meanwhile, Republicans are about to kick another 13 million people off Medicaid to fund taxes for the rich on the backs of some working class Americans. So how can you justify spending millions, 50 million, on a jet while your department is definitely overspending and Republicans in Congress are about to strip also health care from millions of Americans?
Well, Senator, thank you for the question. We are spending our dollars appropriately and will be on budget. When your reference to the airframe that was the requested dollars were put in for, that's for the Coast Guard. It's to replace an existing jet that is over 20 years old and is beyond its usable hours. And the Coast Guard for many, many years has been neglected and has many airframe that have been grounded because they can't even be maintained anymore. The suppliers that give us parts and repairs and maintenance for them have said that they'll no longer support that kind of a mission. We have cutters that haven't been completed, that haven't been deployed out across the world. And then we also, beyond that, are asking for a request to build out the number of Coast Guard members that we need in place. We're asking for 15,000 more to complete the missions that are going forward.
Are you going to have access to that $50 million Gulfstream jet that the Coast Guard is going to supply?
The Coast Guard will use that jet exactly how it uses the jets that it has today, exactly in the same manner that it uses the ones that it has in place today.
So would you consistently be using it to travel?
I don't know if I would use that one or if I would use the other one. I have no idea. But I do spend time out there with our components, making sure that they are, know that they have a secretary that's engaged with them, that's visiting with them, seeing what their needs are. No, sir, they're not photos. They've meant the world to the individuals at the Department of Homeland Security. They have meant the world to our ICE agents, our border agents. When they ask me to be out there with them, so they know what their lives are like.
Talking to some law enforcement, besides those under DHS, we've also seen some law enforcement that have been pulled away from investigations such as child porn, sex trafficking. We've had some agents pulled in that were doing investigations on bank fraud that are now, provisional ICE agents. And I think creating and making them do this type of work is also making us more and more dangerous, since they're not actually doing this long-term investigation. On the other hand, I have talked to some border chiefs and sheriffs repeatedly, and they've been highlighting the danger associated with cartels targeting teenagers in border communities through social media apps and recruiting them to participate in smuggling operations. And one of the bills I introduced with several colleagues here, actually, is the Combating Cartels on Social Media Act, which will help DHS counter this threat. Arizona communities cannot wait for the legislative process to play out on this. What is DHS doing to solve this problem and help keep American children and communities safe from cartel criminal activity and recruitment too?
Well, that is the problem that we have. With the longer that they're here, the more established they become and the more they recruit individuals who may live in this country, U.S. citizens, or even our kids, to be a part of
some
their
of them are
operations.
actually on the other side too. So it's both sides.
What do you mean on their side?
Some of the cartels are using social media on, let's say, Mexico,
yes,
wherever.
Yes, definitely they are.
So it's back and forth.
Yes, they definitely are. But they also are infiltrating our country still by recruiting our children to be a part of their networks.
That's the problem. Yeah.
So we're working with not just the experts that we have within CBP and ICE, but also using our other components to address some of the sophistication that we've seen in these apps, as far as CISA and partnerships that they may have with private industry that can give us insight in what we can do to deploy our own counter-terrorist activities and applications to those systems, what we can do to make sure that we're stopping their ability to communicate with our children and bringing awareness. The Department of Homeland Security has programs in different areas, such as the Know to Protect and the other programs you may be familiar with.
Have you been able to work directly with the social media companies, though, not just through the legislative process?
We have had conversations with the social media companies. And
because by the time we get around to doing it, we're losing more and more people. So like having a very direct conversation and a concentrated effort to actually have outcomes is going to be quicker, because they have the option to do it. We don't have to come in and do it. They just choose not to, because they'd rather make more money than anything else.
Well, that may be, but I found them very willing to come to the table. I've had myself spent dozens of hours with them, and my team has spent hundreds of hours.
Thank you for being here. Michigan's a border state, so we need each other. We have a very big bridge that's being inaugurated, ribbon cut in September. We need that to be fully staffed. We have a lot going on in Michigan as a northern border state, so we need each other. But what I'm concerned about is that you've taken the mandate to close off the border beyond going after, as you say, the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants. I'm a CIA officer. I worked my entire life to protect the homeland. If someone's here illegally, they need to not be here. They've committed a crime by being here. They need to go back to wherever they're from. But my concern is that either through sloppiness or intent, you have gone far beyond going after the, quote, most dangerous illegal immigrants and gone into legal immigrants who were given the ability to be here, and even American citizens. And when I think about that, there are lots of people in this country, including me, who have families who fled this kind of environment where they have no rights, where they have no due process, where they don't have habeas corpus. So while I'll be the first to say, coming from a state that was won by Trump, that there is a mandate to do something about the border, I think it is absolute dangerous overreach to go beyond that and start picking up American citizens and people who have the legal right to be here, lawful immigrants who have done everything right. So first and foremost, do you acknowledge that your department has made some mistakes, any mistakes, in going after either American citizens or legal immigrants here in the time that you've been in office?
We have not deported any U.S. citizens.
Detained?
Or people get interviewed. If they get interviewed and they go through that process, and if we find that they're U.S. citizens or legal immigrants, they stay in the United States.
Have you deported
We have to
any
go through the vetting process.
Have any American citizens, including children, been deported during your time in office?
We have children that mothers have chosen to keep with them. So those
By my
mothers
count, you have
made the-
10 American citizens,
the-
including children with cancer, who have been deported out of the country. I understand you're saying it's their choice.
But the mothers-
it's hard
the
to
mothers-
imagine,
the
hard to
mothers
imagine
chose to keep
a
their
small
children with
child having a choice. But have you gone after legal immigrants? Again, your standard in your opening statement was the most dangerous illegal immigrants. Does that include PhD students and master's students at colleges across the country, unarmed? Are they the most dangerous illegal when they have status and no weapons?
I don't decide who gets status through a student program. This Department of State
Yes,
decides that, and we enforce it.
Oh, come on.
That's what our Department of Homeland Security does.
I just would offer
Those
that,
student
again,
programs,
I have no qualms with going after folks who are here illegally. That is not my concern. That was part of my job, was to prevent people from coming here illegally in a former life. My concern is you're sending a chill down the spine of America by going after people who either have legal status or American citizens. And when my colleagues ask you about habeas corpus, and you say, literally, we can review the tape, that you believe it's a right the president has, you sat here in front of all of us and swore an oath to the Constitution, and that is not at all what habeas corpus is. It is a right that we all get, that American citizens get, that people who are in the United States legally have. So my concern is it's complete overreach. I don't think American citizens, even those who voted for Trump, believe that you should be able to just grab someone off the street, sloppy, who has the legal right to be here, and certainly an American citizen. And I just am concerned that while you say you're going after the most dangerous folks, what you're actually doing is going after folks for political reasons, right? A PhD student that's
We are
unarmed
absolutely
is
not
not
doing
at the
that.
top
And we're not
of the list.
deporting U.S. citizens, and we're not deporting
Well, 10
people
of them
who
have
have
been
legal
deported.
status here.
10 American
If
citizens
the children
have been
have gone
deported.
with their parents, it's because their
let me
parents
ask you
wanted
another
them with
question
them.
about cybersecurity. You know, you've cut $500 million from the budget. What specific programs are you cutting? Because there are programs that really aid states and locals that we depend on for cybersecurity. And we know that right now, while we may have good security in the federal government, if you are a local state official, you're depending on the federal government. So have you cut the ISAC program, the program to states and locals on cybersecurity?
The president's recommended budget has a reduction in $491 million.
Does it cut that program? I've heard the
And what
talking
it's
point.
doing
Does
is
it
putting
cut the
CISA
program?
back on mission.
You
And it's
can't say
ensuring that
this is the most
cybersecurity is
cybersecurity.
So there you have it. On the Action Speak Network, we give you the information as it is. Please hit subscribe. Let's get to 2K. I'm out.
We get to start unite and let the head decide. The people must decide. Send the message.